It's January 29th, 2022, and welcome to episode 67 of the Baby Metal podcast. We gather in podcast Discord server on alternate weeks to discuss news and thoughts on the past and future projects of Baby Metal. We invite you to join us whether you are a longtime fan or have only just arrived. I am Maggie, and I am joined by Kevin.
Paul, you sound a little bit different this week.
And Paul.
Hello.
Salutations.
Right.
Your attempts are noted.
Yes. Evil though they were.
So, Happy New Year, everybody.
Yep. Thank
Has
you.
it really?
Happy New
Is this
Year
really
to
the?
you all.
Even the-
Oh my God! Is this the first one of
It is.
2020? Oh my Lord!
It is.
It's almost
It
February.
is the first one, yes. Yeah, it's
Oh, my
the first
Lanta.
one, and it's almost February.
Yeah.
Oh my Lance. Oh my Lance. And also, I also got to thinking today, it's been 2 years since Legend Metal Galaxy.
To the day?
So, to the day.
Holy crap.
I believe, yeah. Yeah. It was the last weekend of January. Yeah. 2020. Yeah.
And then the Fire Nation attacked.
Yes. So yeah, it's the first recording of 2022. We're here. We're ready. We've got news.
Yep.
We actually have news.
Such as it is.
Such as it is. So the last time that we recorded was right before Sue's birthday, I do believe.
Mm-hmm.
That
So
checks out.
I guess we can kind of start from there. So yeah, Sue's birthday happened. Woohoo!
Yep.
One more lap.
Yeah, one more lap around the sun. Yeah, although as far as the actual posting of the traditional yearly birthday photo, because of lore, we saw beautiful stairs. Beautiful stairs that are aging just wonderfully.
Mm-hmm.
For what is she, 24 now? 23, 24? I think she's 24.
Was the photo that they used the one where it was essentially like the stairs with like Moa photoshopped out? I mean, like you could see her curls or something like that in the removal. There,
I didn't even
There are
notice
some
that.
like hair curls in this image. If you like zoom in, you can see that it was like
Oh, really?
poorly
really?
removed.
Oh, dang.
Not that poorly. I didn't notice.
I didn't notice either.
I'll see if I can.
Well,
locate
hang
it.
on. Pause the broadcast while I zoom in and pixel peep this image.
Yeah, no, I had no. I mean, I know that people were talking about like in relation to New Year's about.
Oh my
stuff.
God, you're right.
Oh, really? Oh, well, shoot fire. Okay. Well, they.
So very low
Do
budget.
they not have a template? Do they not have a digital template of these things? Oh my goodness! Like you have to layer these things. Like, I'm.
Yeah, that's what's really surprising. Like, why didn't they just turn the layer off in Photoshop? Because clearly it's a composite.
Yeah.
Right. Wow, that's, I don't know, a little unprofessional, I think, but I don't know.
On brand.
A little bit, maybe.
You know what it is? I'm looking at this more. Yeah, I bet I know what happened here. Having
okay.
had millions of hours in Photoshops over the years. So it's a composite, right? They're obviously not on this weird staircase thing. There's many layers going on. And what we're seeing is an artifact of a filter or a blending mode on a different layer that adds something. So they turned off the main layer that is them, right? But didn't turn off a blending mode that is attached to like a mask or something else on a different layer. And they just didn't catch it.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. That does make sense. I have a little bit of Photoshop knowledge, so that does make sense. Okay. Cool. Well, now we know.
That's
I know
what
he's
that
half
looks
the
like to
battle.
me.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. Yeah, that does make sense. There is a little bit of a curl there.
And I think if you compare it to like one of the ones where they're in it, you can see actually the hair that it is.
Yeah.
That's funny.
It's probably a hair mask is what it was.
You say hair mask, and the only thing I think of is that goop stuff that they use in the shower. It's like it's not oh gosh, what is it, conditioner, but it's like something along the lines of conditioner you're supposed to put in your, they call it a hair mask. It's supposed to be all like great and stuff for your hair.
That's above my pay grade.
I've heard of it, I've not used it, so I don't know. But apparently it's supposed to be good for you. I don't know. Anyway. So that happened. So Sue's birthday, posted picture of staircase, people losing their minds because Sue's not actually on there. To each their own. And so then continues on to the new year. And as always, they usually post some kind of New Year's picture, whether it's of the girls or of some random object. And once again, because of lore stories and stuff, we get pictures of stairs.
But the light is brighter.
Happy New Year. But the light is brighter.
Well, hang on. I have to pixel peep this one now too.
This one actually, I thought that maybe it was zoomed in a little bit, but I don't think it is. It's identical, except that the light in the middle is brighter.
Brighter. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the lens flare is brighter, but the hair artifact is gone.
Oh.
They might have realized what they've done.
Yeah, I don't see any layering mistakes on this one.
Mm-hmm. But the matter of fact that the light is getting brighter at the top means there's a light at the end of the tunnel, y'all. Hopefully, maybe. We'll see.
I mean, probably.
Yep.
Probably.
I think as you're going to teach us, there is more than meets the eye with this group.
Yes, true in that regard. Yeah, so that was, and people compared the two pictures and they're like, oh, hey, the light's brighter and stuff. I was like, oh, that's really cool. Hopefully maybe like later on that maybe they'll do like a countdown or something and have the lights get brighter up at the stairs. I think that would be neat.
That would be on brand, to countdown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, always a countdown. There's always a countdown. So we got two pictures, no girls, just stairs and brightness and pretty gold and stuff to be on brand with the whole, they're being closed off with lore and stuff. But then we got some unexpected stuff going on with advertising, actually. One of you guys want to talk about it?
Yeah, that was pretty weird. The reason I think we know about this is because, actually, I think BABYMETAL Official retweeted it.
They
retweeted it. Yeah,
but it was it's a sort of like a transfer storage company called WeTransfer. It's I think of it as being a little bit like Dropbox. Essentially, it's specialized for transferring large files and commenting on it, and has certain workflow bits to it that let you, kind of like send things for approval, look for revisions, that kind of stuff. And, so what their ad campaign was basically about sort of like running through a project like making an album cover. And so they, that's what they did. Is BABYMETAL was actually sort of the example group where they like sent off art and they picked out characters, and they had a request for, they sent it back to like the Koba role, who said, let's try putting on a hat on the character, and then they did some further revisions, and then someone had the album in a record store. And so as far as I understand it, although it wasn't super clear initially, WeTransfer is not a creative company. They were facilitating communications between someone who wanted something from a creative and the creative giving it back to them. But they're only the sort of like the intermediate file transfer part.
Oh, see, I misunderstood that. Oh, okay. I thought they were the ones who actually did like the art and I misunderstood. Okay.
Yeah.
No, so I've used a similar service when I was still doing photography as a job and doing wedding videos and things like that, uploading drafts for approval. Yeah, like Paul said, all they do is facilitate the communication and allow you to store and host content for review.
Okay.
But it is, of course, the interesting thing for us is that, they make this appear as if this is an actual thing that happens, so there's that the cover has actually been designed and approved and is due on February 7th.
At 5:30 p.m.
That's right.
At 5:30 p.m.
So who knows? Maybe there's something happening on February 7th.
Yeah. Well, the weird thing about it was that they had 3 videos. Initially, the one about the cover, the one about, I can't remember the second one. It was like, transfer of different portions of the art. And then the third one was about due dates. The due dates one was unlisted. And the only way that you can...
spicy.
Yeah. Well, because I was trying to find it earlier because I was like, trying to figure out how many videos there was. And I thought there was 3. And then I kept searching through their Twitter, through their YouTube. And I was like, okay, I can't find this third one because I knew about the February 7th date. So I had to go through my Twitter because that's how I found out about the due dates one. And yeah, I clicked on the link through somebody else, a Japanese fan. And yeah, it listed that specific video as unlisted, which means that the only way that you can actually get access to it on YouTube is if you know the link for it. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, because it was posted at some point in time for it. And then all of a sudden it just kind of disappeared. I'm like, seems a little strange. Although I will make note of this, that February 7th is a Monday, and that's kind of like weird. So I don't know if that's like a real thing or not, but it's still weird that it's unlisted. Like that specific thing is unlisted, especially with it being something that deals with the thing that they're advertising for. It just was an odd choice. So I don't know what to think about it. If something happens on the 7th, something happens on the 7th. If it doesn't, hey, whatever. You know, it is what it is. But I just, like I said, I still kind of find it a little odd that they would unlist something so specific.
Yeah, I'm definitely more of the simplest answer is probably the correct answer. And for me, the simplest answer is that video just wasn't supposed to go live yet. And whoever's in charge of the YouTube channel messed up.
I don't know. Yeah, it could be. Although, I mean...
that could be a possibility, yeah.
I think it may also be that, not everybody communicated about like what the details were of this
right.
ad campaign. I mean, it's always possible that this is just like, Tim from marketing's idea. And Tim happens to, like the band, and so they asked for permission. But it could also be that this really is going to be a special edition cover for something.
Mm-hmm.
It seems actually kind of likely that it is, because why would you bother
I think so too.
making this up?
Well, I mean, to go back to, well, actually, I guess we haven't talked about it on the podcast because we haven't recorded in 700 years. Koba's been in the media recently talking about alternative revenue streams for music groups and bands in the midst of the pandemic and not being able to do what they usually do. And this kind of aligns from an alternative revenue stream point of view as a way to make money without milking the fan base while you're not performing.
Oh, right.
Oh, because of the payment for the rights to the music.
Yeah, because they got to, this company has to buy the licensing, work with the group, and I'm sure that Koba and Team BABYMETAL have final sign off on how they use the brand, the image, the logo, all that stuff. So they're making money off this.
Oh, true. Yeah.
Plus the rights to the song.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they have to pay a one-time fee for that sort of stuff.
Yeah, although I would say that this is kind of mutually beneficial. I think that both ends get something out of this, and it doesn't actually go too far beyond. It's not like advertising, whatever, like dish soap or something. I mean, it's sort of like sensible. So
yeah, something that even if it really is the case that maybe Team BABYMETAL have used their product or whatever at the same time, or maybe it's because they used their product.
Yeah, I think it is quite possible.
It's certainly possible,
because we know that from interviews with like collaborating musicians that there's a lot of back and forth of drafts, and so this would be a sensible way that they could have been doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and anybody outside of Japan isn't going to take a fax from Koba.
Yeah, the fax over a list of numbers that you have to type in to make your MP3.
Oh, my lands.
But yeah, the interview that you're talking about is in it's in a kind of a weird place. It's in IT media, so it's a multi-part interview with Koba Metal, but it's basically sort of talking about a lot of different things, but part of the stuff that what has happened in the during that time that it's not possible to do live shows, and what this might change in the future landscape. And it's because it's in the IT media outlet, it suggests that it's targeted at an audience that's interested in stuff like streaming and other virtual experiences. By the way, in the chat, Funny Toss has promised that it will be translated. So thank you for that. I managed to kind of like squint through Google Translate enough to get an idea, but it will be interesting to read it a little bit more well translated.
Toss a pizza to your funny.
Yes.
Nobody.
Yeah, I know. It took me a minute.
I had to replay that a couple times in my head to figure out what was what.
Sorry.
Anyway, so cool. So February 7th, if there's going to be a countdown, maybe it'll start soon.
Yeah, possibly. And I mean, even then, I mean, just as a side note, if nothing happens even on the 7th, sooner or later, the one membership should be opening up at some point. So
yeah,
it's not like we're not going to have something soon.
Yeah, I went back and looked over the past few years, and I think what I determined was that it's we get the email from the one somewhere around February 24th, plus or minus a day, in all the recent years. So there's still probably a month before we hear from them, but I would expect that we would hear something at that point. I mean, like, who knows what's going to happen? I would think if they seriously are not going to do any sort of like stuff, then it seems like one possibility might be that they would just extend existing the one memberships rather than try to do a new thing with nothing to promise. But I assume they're probably trying to come up with something to promise.
Right.
Got to make them dollary dues.
Yes. Yeah, because I mean, let's see. What did we have in the 2021 to 22?
Maybe many 10 Baby Metal Years things.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, because all those came out at the end of last year. That's right. I forgot.
And I actually, they're probably not incurring much by way of expenses at this point. So I mean, like, it's not like they're bleeding money.
Yeah, it's not like they're losing. I mean, they're losing money in the sense of they're not gaining it per se, but they're not like what they have now. They're not losing it. Yeah. So what's the thing about the Songs of Tokyo for this year? Because that was something new I've not seen.
Yeah, that actually, as we're recording, that just showed up today. But it's NHK International, I guess. They have this like Songs of Tokyo series, and just today I think they posted 2020, or maybe it's within the last couple of days, but 2022 J-pop music the world wants to hear, and it's targeted for international audiences, so it is subtitled in English and often is actually in English, and it sort of just goes through a bunch of people who are known internationally or might become known internationally, or are of some interest. They sort of talked to I think they had some a few representative international people there on the stage, and then they solicited comments from people sort of out wider, suggesting bands to listen to or whatever. And Baby Metal's participation in it was really just like I think they're pretty much like the first one that appears in the whole thing. And there's like a little segment where they are mentioned, but I mean many groups are mentioned, so it's not very significant. It was just recent.
Right. Well, they also performed at the 2021 Songs of Tokyo, didn't they?
Yeah. So
2020.
I mean, it's essentially like a show. What I mean is it's like a series. So there was a music show where they brought in a bunch of bands and played and had people watching on video screens and stuff like that. But this wasn't that. This was just like one episode of something that they were it's sort of like a year wrap up or year look ahead, I guess.
Oh, well, okay.
So it wasn't a performance.
Right. Well, I know that they weren't performing. I just say that I thought they did perform on Songs of Tokyo. Like they did like one or two songs last year, I thought.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep,
okay.
They did.
So I was right. Okay, cool. So onward, the other somewhat notable thing, I guess, is that there was a lucky bag for sale.
So did who among us?
No. I have enough as it is. No.
You want to describe it?
Was not a bad thing for new fans.
Particularly
Kevin,
new fans in Japan.
I guess it came with one of those what do they call those? Is the delivery
the
bags?
Delivery bag.
The big delivery bag, and it had some like merch inside of it that equaled out to be like a certain amount, but it ended up being like you paid like, what was it, 22k yen for it. And like the worth of what was inside that bag was more than that, I guess, but it didn't include any kind of like CDs or DVDs or anything like that from what I understood. So
yeah, and
it's a good starter set.
I think so. I think it was primarily clothing. Like I think you ordered it by size. You said like I want the, large lucky bag or whatever. But presumably it's just a way to clear out their old stock.
That's usually how it works.
And the cynical or the pessimistic view of that is clear out all the old stock before they shut down. But
yeah,
wow,
but
that is pretty pessimistic. I don't know. I mean, like I said, I think it's okay. I don't know. I have a more optimistic viewpoint on it as far as how things will go. Of course, none of us are going to know, but I do think that Baby Metal is still going to be sticking around for a bit. So, depending on the the amount of members that are in there, of course, which my thought process is it's still going to be 2, but it is what it is.
Yeah. I guess the thing about the lucky bag that made it seem like it's a little hard to, justify that is that, like essentially if there's stuff in there that I don't have, it's because I didn't want it. So.
Fair enough.
That's fair.
But I don't have the pizza delivery bag. But I think that's probably okay. I also don't have the tent or the wagon. Yeah. It's funny enough, like I've seen the wagon. I had never seen that style of wagon before. They had, sort of like, had this as a merch item. And now I see them everywhere. So they must have been everywhere. It's just I didn't know to notice them.
Yeah. No, those, I have some neighbors that have those things that they carry their groceries and stuff in it, and it's all foldable and collapsible, and it's really handy. They're heavy duty. They last a while. So yeah.
I mean, it was a Coleman collaboration, and they're one of the biggest outdoors camping product line manufacturers on the planet.
Yeah, I guess it just I now realize I spent most of my recent life not paying attention to wagons.
Well, shoot, you've been missing out, Paul. Wagons are love.
Harder.
Wagons are love. Wagons are life.
Wow.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Anyway.
Moving on.
It's possible that's enough of the news. But it's still, there's a fair amount happened for this time of nothing.
Yeah, I mean, true. Well, I mean, we weren't really expecting to add things, so that was kind of way off left field. Yeah. So, but it was something to get excited about. That was great. Something to more speculations and cool stuff and getting the gears going again and hoping and keeping our fingers crossed for the future. That's all we can ask for, especially nowadays. So, all right. So the reason behind me talking way more than I normally do. So today for our little topic, we're going to be talking costumes, y'all.
Woohoo.
Woohoo. Kind of been something that's been in the works actually since I first joined. Everyone's like, she's got to do something about costumes at some point in time. And so we figured this would be a good point. To do that.
So since you're hosting, I'm going to throw a wrench right in your way and make you think on your feet. What is the difference between a costume and an article of clothing?
Costumes are, ooh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The brain exercise, get going.
Yes. Well, I mean, that's actually a really good start. But that kind of leads into everything, really. So the difference between a costume, or at least, okay, in my perspective, because, well, first of all, can we derail that for just a second?
Okay, derail the derailment.
Just derail the derailment, which is, no, it's perfect. No, this is perfect. So minor disclaimer. Firstly, I do cosplay. I've been cosplaying for a hot minute. Does not necessarily mean that I am the most perfect person at it. So bear that in mind. Okay. Secondly, I only have one actual professional costuming credit to my name. And I know a decent amount about costuming and things to be able to do this. So I just want to put that disclaimer out there that I'm trying my best here.
Considering
Okay.
I buy clothes on Amazon, I think you are way more qualified to talk about this than I am.
Yeah, exactly. Among the three of us,
Fair
you
enough.
are miles ahead.
Fair enough. I have a sewing machine at home, so and I know how to use it and I know how to do fancy things with it, although I would make a professional costumer cry with some of the ways that I've done stuff. Part of the reason why we're also doing this is a good friend of the podcast, Professor AJ Hartley, asked me to participate in a costume video along with him and a associate professor of costuming at the University of North Carolina. Ali Amadei, I believe is how you say her last name. Super, super cool lady. Very, very just in-depth information about even Japanese costuming. Like she knew a lot. I learned a lot from just doing that video. So there's a 2-parter that'll be up and posted, and you'll actually get to see me and my face. Yeehaw.
Yeehaw.
Yeehaw. And I don't know, I felt a little awkward. Like I wasn't sure what I needed to do, but it went well. Like I said, I learned a lot. And we kind of went for the history of the Baby Metal outfits from beginning to end, and pinpointed a few things between here and there. So now that's been all said and done, to go back to what the question was that Kevin proposed there, the difference between what's a costume and everyday clothing, I assume, is kind of the way that I want to present the costuming thing today. Is so, to answer the question, or at least in my perspective, everyday clothing is just a representation of you and how you want to wear things, and it's supposed to keep you warm or comfortable and keep you clothed, and it does represent you in a manner of speaking. Whereas a costume is, it's supposed to tell a story. It's supposed to, get a feeling from it. And, it's supposed to represent whatever is going on for what it's being used for. So, I mean, if you really want to get all philosophical, sometimes your everyday clothes can technically be a costume if you really want to look at it that way. But for the most part, yeah.
Could it be that a costume is basically representing something that you aren't actually? I mean, like it seems to me like when I think of that word, it's obscuring something, right? I mean, like it's protecting something that isn't actually you.
I mean, yeah, they could be seen that way too, really. I mean, yeah, no, you're right on that too, actually, now that I think about it.
So that might be sort of different from an outfit. Like an outfit is sort of like trying to display, your own identity, whereas the costume is trying to display something that you wanted to display, but wasn't, doesn't necessarily represent yourself.
That's a better way of saying it in a very short amount of time. Thank you. You have saved me on that one.
Well, I only thought of it based on what you were saying. So,
well, I'm glad you can at least translate what I'm like. You get what I'm trying to say, and you put it in much better words than I do. But yeah, I know. No, you're right on that. Actually, you're very, very correct on that. So yeah, costumes, as Paul said, are a way of projecting something that, well, is supposed to be a cover, supposed to, tell a story, garner a feeling, also mask what you as a person are in regards to what it is that you're giving out, I guess. So costumes are more than just a pretty thing to put on to be like, oh, hey, I'm portraying this person. This is great. Or, oh, I want to look cool. It's costuming is way more than that. There is basically with any kind of art, there's always something kind of hidden in behind the finished product, as far as, the type of, materials that were used, how the materials were used, how the product in and of itself came out, and also how the product will function in everyday life. I will tell you, as far as it being a costumer, or I should say a cosplayer is concerned, I will say that a lot of the costumes that I've made over the years, not functional for daily wear. Not in the least bit. Whereas there are some people that will take the time and effort to make something functional in public. But I just used to do it just for, okay, I know I'm only going to be wearing this for a short amount of period of time. I don't have to do certain things this way. It's quick, easy, and done. But for obviously baby metal, you have to kind of keep that all stuff in mind. So
yeah, I was thinking about that as you were talking about that earlier. That like the things that you, when you were constructing the things that were meant to sort of imitate what baby metal were wearing, you didn't have to like dance around on stage with it.
No,
you had like a day at the concert, and then that was it. So it is it's
for the most part.
It is interesting that there are different considerations. Like, I mean, probably still considerations of weight and heat and stuff like that are still somewhat relevant, but maybe less relevant to the one day only version.
Right, exactly. Whereas like mine, I do kind of want to make it last because I would like to wear my stuff to multiple concerts and stuff, but it's not as necessary to keep, quote, professional in that regard. But just something to wear. Like I made the outfit from the 2017 tour, which had, it was the one that was all black and had the silver bits and pieces and the triangle gems in the front of it. And still had the big tutu. But for the most part, that whole entire outfit was black. It was black. And I wore that to the last showing of Rock on the Range in 2018. And you have no idea how many people came up to me and was like, "Are you burning up in that? Are you hot? Are you not sweating?" To like, I'm just like, actually, no, I'm fine, because of the type of materials that were used to construct the garment. It's just one of those things you have to keep in mind. So it kind of proves the point that, it's not just putting stuff together. There's other things that you have to take into consideration. So I kind of want to go ahead and go through the different outfits, not necessarily in order, but like, because obviously I don't work for Muse. I don't work for Baby Metal. Shame. So we have to kind of make assumptions on some things, but being, like I said, being as somebody who's done costuming and stuff before, I kind of have some ideas of where they were trying to go with certain stuff. What I had went and did was I kind of split it up with Baby Metal as far as their costuming is concerned. They did have 3, we'll call them eras, just to be Baby Metal like. We'll call them eras. So obviously they started in 2010. So like 2010 to 2013, that was kind of their early development and how and about they wanted to take Baby Metal in and of itself, because it was still technically part of Sakura Gakuen. So they wanted to do something with this, but didn't know what. So that was their like early development time. In 2014 to 2017, they were more set in their ways on how they wanted to present themselves, their story they were presenting. And then, of course, most of us know at this point in time from 2018 to current, they're more adult, mature, I should say, not adult, but more mature take on their costumes. So starting with the 2010 to 2013 costumes. And now I'm not as big a fan of Sakura Gakuen as you two are. When did Sue graduate?
2012.
Yeah, well,
in 2012.
I think it was like March 2013. It was the 2012 year.
Yeah, it's like sports in school years. The 2012-2013 season.
Yep.
I gotcha.
And actually, she was alone in graduating that year too, which is unusual. So like the yearbook has just her on the cover. I have a signed one.
She gets a book all to herself. Nice.
Do you really? It's the only book I don't have because I cannot find a signed one.
Yeah, it took a lot of looking.
I have an alert if one ever pops up. So if you're listening to this and you're looking to get rid of a 2012 Nendo signed book, find me on Twitter.
So back on track on this. For their early development, obviously they were still part of Sakura Gakuen. So they were taking this concept of, okay, hey, we're trying to do this cute metal thing. How are we going to portray it? Well, you have to, like I said, you have to consider multiple different things. Of course, these girls were still in school, so it was all still being very cutesy and stuff. So the kind of design thing they were going for, which is obviously, and a lot of us probably know that it's really popular in Japan, is the Gothic Lolita schoolgirl look. They had the frills, they had the plaid, they had black, they had red. And that was like the standard, trying to be all like, hey, we're school kids and we just learned that metal exists and this is great.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like at the very outset, like when you're looking at it, you can sort of tell that Doki Doki Morning and Ine both were made basically at the same time. They're wearing basically the same thing. And so that costuming is quite a bit different, I think, from what ended up happening later. And it really looks like essentially they just like raided mom's closet, and we're just essentially just trying to use whatever was around to get a kind of like a dark look that looked sort of like what they perceive, metal to look like.
Mm-hmm. And I was going to say, and this was the very beginning of their time, like Sakura Gakuen was just getting started and they didn't really even, like, they had their set kind of ideas and things, but it still wasn't a whole lot. They were probably, like, they were still, even with Sakura Gakuen, they're probably still trying to play with ideas and stuff too. So they were taking the ideas with Sakura Gakuen in mind to do this club thing that, well, they weren't sure what they were going to do with necessarily.
Yeah, I think we discovered at some point that BABYMETAL and Minipati, and I think maybe it was just those two, it did kind of exist a little bit before Sakura Gakuen actually formulated. But, I think it was all sort of around that same time. But yeah, I mean, I think, so the way I read this, I particularly see this in the Doki Doki Morning video, it was sort of like obvious once I noticed it, is that it really does seem like what we're seeing is essentially what they see in their head, like what they're doing. Like they're performing metal, and you've got the backing band and the skeletons and stuff like that. When that's what that's what they're seeing internally. But but what they're actually doing is just bopping around in the bedroom, and so they sort of cuts between those, like their internal vision and then what they're actually doing. And I think I've always sort of thought that was kind of like the concept. It's sort of like manifest what people of this age believe they're doing when they're doing this. But the other thing about the costumes though is that it really looks to me like they had an idea at the beginning that this that they would sort of differentiate each other with specific things, like so Moa's the one with a tie, and that would be consistent, and then Yui's the one with a brooch, and they're not dressed the same. They're because it's really just taking whatever's available. So they much as the costumes developed, Yui and Moa wound up being much more similar. I mean, like down to, it was basically just gloves that differentiated them later. Whereas here they're much more distinct. They kind of look the same from a distance, but they're everything, all the sort of details are different. And I suspected that was going to be, they were at least at that point thinking that was going to be the thing. Moa was going to be the one with the tie, but then they kind of shifted direction.
Yeah. And that tie was always really cute too, because if you've seen close-up pictures of it, it has the little like skulls on it. And it's super cute. It's like, I kind of want one.
I don't think I've ever actually seen a close-up of that tie.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it has like little skulls on it.
Yeah. There's a fable, which I think it's a fable. I've sort of prejudged it by calling it that essentially they're dressed by actually raiding, some staff member's closet. But I believe Sue's jacket was actually from a staff member. Yeah. I mean, that's I think what I believe is that there might be one tiny kernel of truth to that, but generally speaking, I think this was designed. It's just that but I actually do have the sense that they believed it when they told it to interviewers,
Mm-hmm.
because I think the Amuse staff was not completely straight up with the kids. Is basically what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they did have the same exact. Moa and Yui had both the same exact skirts. It was just their tops that were different.
Yeah.
And as you said, one had the tie, one had the. It doesn't really look like a brooch to me. It looks like what do they call those? Oh no!
Well,
the word went out of my head.
I absolutely do not stick by my choice of word because I don't have any idea what that is. It's just a thing that one kind of wears on like the front of one's shoulder.
It just looks like a very fanciful. What do they wear those things on your wrist? And the guy wears a boot, like almost like a boutonniere, but just a fanciful, more fancy one, I guess.
Yeah, there's some word for that people talk about when going to prom, and I can't think. Maybe corsage. Yeah.
Like it was a weird. Yeah, it was a corsage. That's what I was thinking of. But I don't know. It's in my opinion on everything. Obviously, it's way back when, but I thought that thing was just a little too big and bulky for her.
Oh yeah, but that's
really.
But that's that's the part of the point is that everything is kind of misfitting, right? Because it's just raided from the closet.
Well, true, yeah, but I mean, either way, they were still trying to go for the kind of the gothic Lolita schoolgirl look, in some senses, which they actually did transfer over into Headbanger. Way more.
Yeah, absolutely.
They made that way more apparent that that's what the kind of look, the dark, like I said, the more dark gothic Lolita look.
Heavy makeup. And
even the heavy makeup, the black eyeliner, the really high ponytail, the black and reds, the more black than red. And it took me a little bit of time to notice, and a lot of people don't really immediately notice with it, but even Yui and Moa's outfits were still different.
Mm-hmm.
I believe they had a what did she call it? A cincher, the thing around their waist, essentially. That one was turned front ways and one was turned backwards on each of the girls, and even the designs of their skirts were completely different too. But they still had the very gothic Lolita look with the the lace and with the black and the frillies and the high collar neck on Sue, which that outfit in myself I absolutely just love to death. To death. Anyway, but the thing that always kind of worried me, and I've always thought about this for some of their earlier stuff that they've worn, is especially in the Headbanger outfit, is how warm were those girls while performing in those outfits. Well, especially I would say more Sue than anybody, because bringing back up to the topic of learning with costumes, when you put stuff together, yes, everything looks pretty and nice and it's made well and everything, but something you have to consider, especially if you are involved in theater or stage or performance in music, as in even Broadway has to consider this sort of stuff. Not as badly as it was back in the day, a little bit, but here more lately it's not as big of a deal. But when you're performing on a stage under really bright lights, you get warm really, really fast. So I always got really concerned about I wondered how hot and just uncomfortable Sue had to be in that jacket performing around, because she was bopping around a little bit too, obviously.
Do we actually know if they used that in performance though? I mean, if it wouldn't be as much of a concern if it were just one day's video shoot.
The headbanger outfit they used for the shoot. They used for another video. They used it for Uki Uki Midnight. They used it for Legend I believe, and they also used it for their first performance at Summer Sonic or Louder Life or something along one of those festivals. They used the headbanger outfit for multiple different times.
But but you didn't wear a coat, did you?
Yeah, she wore a coat. She wore a coat every single time.
Huh. Just during that song,
for
some reason I don't feel like I recognize the coat.
She wore it the full entire performance.
Wow. Okay, I'll have to go look again.
But no, she wore it for every performance. So that's something you have to consider too, is that if you are, in her regards, like she was wearing that jacket all the time, you have to consider about the weight of the material that you're using. You have to consider, how breathable it is, because you have to think about the comfort of your performers too, which is, like I said, I was just kind of taken aback that she didn't take that jacket off at all. Like, you only ever see her with the coat on. She also takes the picture with the No Music, No Idol setup as well. They use that for that as well. Mm. So they were still, like I said, they were still going with the Gothic Lolita look at that point, which then, I guess, yeah, true that Sakura Gakuen did perform in the jacket, so they did have some practice with that. That's true.
Yeah, not just a jacket, a jacket with a sweater vest and a long sleeve shirt.
Yeah, and see,
so perhaps they're used to like very high temperatures.
Yeah, because they were dancing around, jumping around with most of that stuff on too, or at least more so later on down the road. I
think it's important to mention, just from comfort level, where they grew up. Like, summer in Japan is disgustingly warm and awful. Mm-hmm. But when you grow up and you're accustomed to being, hot and awful, you have a higher tolerance to it than probably what we're referencing in our own heads.
Well, yeah, that's true. I didn't really think about that, I guess.
I was at one time I was in Tokyo. It was like July, and I just moved very slowly. It was just not possible to do anything more than that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It wasn't too bad the summer that I went there. It was kind of slightly overcast, I think, if I remember correctly. It's been so long ago now at this point. Yeah, I guess, well, yeah, if you're accustomed to that sort of thing, I guess it doesn't bother you too much. But still, I don't know. That's just something that is, I don't know, still you have to take in consideration. Like, that's just something you have to think on. As far as when you're designing things, which for the most part, for the first two outfits, for the Doki Doki Morning outfit and the Headbanger outfit, these are just items and stuff that you can just get from, like you said, you can probably just buy off of a store shelf and just put it on and be done. Like, I guarantee that Sue's shirt was just a Victorian shirt that was bought off somewhere. And the skirts, well, the Yui and Moa skirts were probably, they may have been custom made, but they're tops and things, very basic, kind of easy sort of thing in development. Now you said that Sue graduated in 2013.
Calendar year 2013, yeah.
Calendar year 2013.
It would have been basically just a little bit after Legend Z.
Okay.
Right.
So then so IDZ would have been released by that point then, or before that point then. Okay. So then it's just kind of funny to me because for the first two songs, they had the like I said, the very Gothic Lolita look. And then all of a sudden with IDZ, they have the armor look, which then they pretty much proceed to use, or is the basis of the outfit from basically here on out.
Almost, I think IDZ actually comes before Magitsune, so that it's not quite persistent, but
well, yeah, not yeah, in that regard, So IDZ in and of itself, the story behind that is, well, obviously we know that it is Ijume Dame Zetai, no more bullying forever, trying to fight against being bullied, essentially. So, like, I'm assuming, and like I said, a lot of this has to be assumptions because I never worked for them, sad face. But I'm assuming that's where they kind of got the story behind why they were using armor for that specific song, because they used something we were discussing in the AJ and Allie video, which is also highly amusing because AJ and Allie is, I believe, a musical group.
Is it?
I believe so. So when I wrote that down in my show notes, I was like, that's funny. But the video that I did prior, that they were discussing about what they get their ideas from, which wasn't necessarily just Japanese. It was also very much influenced outside of Japan as well. Mainly for the outfit, the IDZ outfit was very Romanesque. They had the little dress kind of fronts with the individual pieces. That one had the bows. It was still considered as so cute, but they had the little metal pieces all embossed onto it. Still very bright, shiny, metal looking material. And then, of course, they had the tutus that went underneath it, albeit they weren't as pronounced, but they did have the tutus. So the IDZ armor was kind of like kind of the precursor of all the other outfits from here on out, or at least the thing with whomever is part of their design team. And I honestly don't know if Koba is part of the design team. I mean, I'm assuming he has at least
Almost
some
certainly.
say in it.
Almost certainly.
My guess is the armor was probably his idea.
It's a possibility.
Yeah.
But the cool thing about it is that they have from basically from this point on, from IDZ on, is that they borrowed an element of the prior year's costume to use in the current year's costume, which I think is kind of cool. I think it's kind of neat. Kind of gives something to kind of base themselves off of. Is like, well, what element of this outfit worked really well? Okay, we're going to use it for this one, and then we're going to build it off of there. I thought that was kind of a cool design feature that they kind of kept with pretty much, except for in the 2018 stuff. That was totally different. But yeah, they took an element and then kept with a certain element for the duration, which was nice. I'm sure it probably made things a lot easier for them too. So IDZ came out, and then they had, Legend I, Legend D, Legend Z. Then they had what was called the Deathmatch Tour, which then they established Metal Resistance during that portion, I believe. Their story at that point was established, which is also, they were using it as like a thing to promote Megitsune.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking with the armor. I was thinking that since it appeared with IDZ, I think that predated this metal resistance idea. So I think the armor there really was like armor protecting against the bullies, basically, whereas like the armor later is really armor going off, in defense of metal.
Mm-hmm.
But
right.
But it's just
like,
continuous, sort of.
Well, they did announce the Megitsune single after I believe Legend Z, and then they announced that they were doing the tour with the live backing band for a change, and then they, like I said, they did still use the IDZ armor for that tour before Megitsune, which then it was just kind of funny because then they reverted back into the kind of semi Gothic Lolita look with the ruffled neck and what Allie had announced as a Peter Pan neck line. The frills, the bows at the top portion, and then the bottom portion they reused the tutu, of course, red and black. But then they had the kimonos for the performance, which obviously is very Japanese. I mean, that whole entire song is just reeks of just, this is all about Japan. Mm-hmm. That was kind of the whole entire point in that. But so they went kind of still back into the semi-Victorian look with that. But then once Megitsune's kind of time of them promoting it was over, they went right back into going for the armor.
Yeah. Before we leave McGidsney, I guess I just wanted to talk a little bit about that because there is really no hint of armor there. I mean, there's I guess a sword on a microphone at one point, but I mean, like otherwise it is really just it's just sort of regular costumes, but black. You know, I mean, like frilly and doll-like. Mm-hmm. The other thing that was interesting about the kimonos too is that they are so basic. I mean, like they are undecorated completely. They are just black and red.
Yeah.
Which it almost makes them unusual, I think, because because they are so simple. But the other thing I was thinking about too is that, and it's probably obvious actually, but it really does sort of seem like in the I'm mostly going on the video of it, but I mean, like the representation is essentially that the simple black kimono, is sort of like the view from the outside, and with the kimono off and dancing around in the sort of black and red costume, that is more the view of the inside, and that's from the inside, and that's kind of like the story of the song too, right?
Well, true, yeah.
So I think they really are kind of using the costumes to get at both of those perspectives.
Mm-hmm. Once again, telling a story.
Anyway, I wanted to stick that in there before we moved away from it, because I thought it was sort of interesting.
No, that is very interesting. No, I'm still learning stuff. This is great. No, this is awesome. This has been a perfect opportunity for me because, like I said, I'm not necessarily professional and I know some things, but sometimes you got to see stuff from other people's perspectives too. And you add that, and that's how you learn. That's how you grow. You take things from different people. You take them sometimes as your own, and that's how you grow. Yeah, so back into the outfits in and of themselves, the fact in the matter that they went ahead and started using the armor. They were finally getting themselves established. So, like, they basically, for 3 years, almost for about 3 years, they were experimenting with their, I guess you want to call it their brand. Which the thing is that that's always kind of nice, because when you have the freedom to be able to experiment, it makes it without like judgment, I guess. It makes it really nice to be able to kind of like see what works, see what doesn't, which is probably part of what they were thinking as well. What's a good look for the girls, how old they are, as far as, their dancing and things, what's going to work well for them. And how are they performing? When are they performing? And of course, at this point now, they've started doing, festivals and performing outside. And so there's just a whole bunch of thought process that has to go into all these designs. So the fact that they stuck with the armor look is kind of cool, because then they've established their story. They established their background, their identity, I guess, and that they're, taking this road down for the metal resistance. And it's a path that has been untrekked, and that they're trekking it and, fighting along the way and trying to survive and taking us down for the journey.
I think one thing that I do feel in the costumes though is that there is, the comedy is still there. I mean, it's they're not seriously just trying to make armor. They're trying to make funny armor. They've got things that look sort of like chainmail but are actually made of polka dots. And the thing, allegedly protective metal bits are just sort of like, clearly little like flimsy cloth shiny things.
Right. It's very, yeah. I mean, you can't. I mean,
so they could have gone on. They could have gone in all serious on it, but instead, what they're doing is they're continuing the joke, basically. In a way. I mean, like,
yeah, modify the idea to make it work for them.
Yeah, but not just in a. I guess not just in a sort of functional way. Like make it work conceptually with them, not just be able to dance in it. Yeah, because it wouldn't be much fun to dance in actual chainmail, I'm assuming.
No, that is considerably heavy and awful, and you would have muscles the size of the new chick off of Encantado or that new Disney movie. You'd have some mass muscles. Yeah, that stuff's not comfortable to move in real chainmail. No, big fat no. It is not comfortable at all. So I mean, yeah, just be able to take a concept and modify it to work for what you need it to work for. Like, kind of using another example, because I've done stuff, having to make an idea of fish being on stage, but being played by live kids. It's like, how do I make a seahorse? How do I make a puffer fish? How do I make a octopus? You have to kind of take an idea and then, modify it to still be able to give the idea of what you're trying to get out, but also be very stylized. Make it your own sort of thing. Then basically the example is of me trying to do The Little Mermaid Junior. I was the head of costuming for that show at the local community theater. And oh, buddy, that was some difficult stuff to have to deal with. Oh my gosh. Doing it for like 30, how many kids were in that show? Like 30 plus kids. And of course you had your Prince Eric, you had your Ariels, had to come up with a design that wasn't too overly sexualized, but to not, trying to make it be mermaids without being too crazy over the top, and also comfortable enough for them to dance in. So many different things you have to kind of consider in that regard too. But yeah, just taking an idea and trying to reimagine stuff, that can be difficult. That can be very, very difficult. But the armor thing, obviously they did a very good job on that. Still very kind of the very punk metal look, but also still very much giving off that this is supposed to look like armor. Like that is the idea we are going for. We're supposed to be fighting. This is our uniform. This is us. So it takes a lot of creative, definitely a lot of creative juices to be able to come up with. I'm sure they probably had like a storyboard of different ideas. So I'm sure that the IDZ outfit was not like the only one that they had in mind. I'm sure they probably had some variations of different design ideas that could have worked in that regard. But the IDZ one obviously was the one that was picked. So that's cool. Then they did the whole entire 360 with Magitsune and went back into using the tutus and the Victorian thing, but then went right back into they used the Magitsune outfits for Legend 99, but then they went right back into the very Gothic Lolita armor look for Legend 97, which was Gimme Chocolate. Most people are familiar with the black, all black with the like armored shoulder pads. In the kind of cinched front with the tie, with the string ties, and then the multi-tiered red and black and red skirt, because it was multiples. So they were still trying to like work with the Lolita look a little bit then, but then that was Legend 97, which was in the that was end of 2013. So that was right after Sue graduated. And then early 2014 was when the Budokan happened. And then that was when the new album was announced and dropped and everything. So by that point, I think they were kind of done tinkering. And they finally were like, you know what? We're going to go with this armor look from here on out. That is our identity. This is what we're doing. Your metal resistance. We're finding our way through. And here's our story. We finally have it. Here is Baby Metal. This is us. It's great. They had 3 years to work on this. And then it turned out the way that we are all familiar with, which is great. And it's really cool because, like I said, they use the concepts of each the prior year's outfits to use for the next year's outfits. I know that they were using the knee-high socks for a while. Then they took that away. They used tights instead. Obviously, this tutu had stayed as a constant throughout the whole entire time from 2000, from IDZ time all the way up to 2017. They kept with the tutu idea because, tutus are relatively cute. And then they kept with the stylized armor idea, but even then, like through the 2014, 2017 era, even then it was kind of becoming a little bit more stylized, even where it was kind of more minimalistic than it was before. And they just kept going with that, which was awesome.
And the red faded and faded and faded. I mean, like that was another thing that was sort of interesting. A lot as the progression went on, it became less and less red to the point where, like Legendess, it was just not red at all.
It was all black and silver. It was kind of felt. Now that actually just kind of popped in my head, like that could have been seen. Like people sometimes use like, oh, Death to My 20s, and they have like the 30-year-old like old like death parties because Death to My 20s or whatever. I had a friend who did that once, and it was actually quite fun. We all wore morning outfits, and she wore this like black like outfit, and it was cool. And it was like, black roses and coffins everywhere and stuff. So they might have even used that idea to say, the death to her youth and that she was becoming an adult. That's not a bad idea.
Was there like Big Fox Festival? Was there red in that? I think it was already black by then.
Big Fox Festival. Big Fox Festival was, because that was right before 2017. So there was red in Yui and Moa's outfits, but not in Sue's. Sue's was strictly black and silver. Okay. That was the one that I had made for the 2018 stuff. That was the one that had the front V with the huge like octagonal gems on the center of it, with the little puff sleeves. That had the detachable sleeves with them, although they never really used the detachable sleeves too much in the 2017 ones. But then they had the tutu overlay with the kind of shiny silver. Yeah, her outfit didn't have any, but Moa's and Yui's had the red, I believe, around the collar. God, it's been so long.
They have a little bit in the hair scrunchies, but
yeah,
it's really light. I mean, like if there's any, it's very little.
Yeah, there's very, very, very little of it. Yeah. So yeah, maybe then they were kind of using a story to kind of. I mean, like I said, we're making a lot of this is unfortunately an assumption because, well, none of us work for them, but from a costume design point, I guess so 2014 to 2017, like I said, they had their identity established. They apparently were still going through story now that we're talking this out now at this point, that they may have been trying to kind of meld their way into doing the all black and silver because obviously Koba, we're already aware that Koba had the plan for the dark side idea for like eons. So maybe they were trying to work towards that. And then, Sue's birthday, dark side happens. She's now considered as a mature adult. Yeah.
And it definitely does seem like the, if not, regardless of any larger story, the sort of decrease in red went along with them getting like actually older.
Mm-hmm. It did.
So,
yeah. So with that, between the 2010 and 2017 years, the point, like I said, the whole entire point of talking about this is that there's a lot that goes into this. There's so much that goes into this. I mean, as far as all of us are concerned as being fans, their outfits have done their jobs. For Doki Doki Morning and Ine, they had their fun adventure story. Headbanger was like, okay, I'm growing into this. This is great. This is awesome. That was kind of the story of that. Like, I'm getting into this mode. IDZ, the whole entire being bully thing, we're going to fight for you sort of stuff. Megatune, we're growing up, we're older. That's the kind of the story they were telling about, because, it's about womanhood and stuff. Technically, we can't say much about Gimme Chocolate, because that was a whole entire, oh, hey, here, we're going to put a video out about this performance that we did, and it just so happened to be that, hey, it became really super popular. So we can't really talk about Gimme Chocolate too much. And then, obviously, then they were like, hey, we've got a new album, and this is great. But, yeah, there's just, costumes give a story. And as Paul had mentioned at the beginning of the show, it kind of hides who they are as a person, which has always been discussed, that they always felt like they were acting, and that, Su-metal is different than Suzuka, and all this stuff. So even wearing a costume can get you into the mode of, I'm being somebody different than who I am. Even as well, I shouldn't say an actress, but someone who has been on the community theater stage, that is a very accurate statement. Costumes can definitely make you feel, like you are the person that you're, supposed to be acting as. So it's just, there's just so much in costuming. It's cool. Costuming is an art. You're just, instead of doing with paints and pictures, you're doing it with materials. You're doing it with fabrics. One of the things that Allie had mentioned was, with the fabrics and stuff, it really does matter, not just in the whole comfort thing and everything, but to, express the story and meaning. But even something so tiny as, with the Budokan outfit, there was... what is called a peplum. It's kind of like an overlay skirt to some degree. There's actually a split in it, in the middle of it, between the two, so you could see the underside of the tutu. But I guess that's even in relation to the Japanese war outfits, because when you were riding on a horse, you wanted to make sure your armor was going to be able to split apart so you could actually sit comfortably in there. So they had it stylized to be like a Japanese war outfit as well for that show. And the shiny material that they had used was supposed to be representative of the shininess of the oil, because they used a lot of leather and metal and stuff too, but you had to use the stuff on the leather and stuff and made it shiny as well. So even the choice of using something that didn't have a sheen on it to something that was super bright, and could, when light bounces off of it, it's whoo.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting. That this idea that essentially the Budokan 2014 Sue outfit at least had borrowed from actual practical considerations for riding horses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was that was something that, like I said, in the other video that I did, Allie had pointed out to, because she's really into Japanese history, and so she was able to pull the context from that outfit into, oh hey, here's this is what they were trying to get there. I was like, wow, that's really cool.
It would be interesting to kind of know what the thought process was, because it's quite possible that the thought that went into it isn't, let's make it so that were Sue faced with a horse, she would be able to ride it, but rather,
right.
Seeing the imagery of armor from the time period, it had this quality, and whether you knew it was about horses or not, you sort of knew that it had this split in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
By the way, how's it going, Kevin?
Hi. I'm just sitting here learning.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
great. I'm glad that you're learning something. I hope everyone else who's listening is learning as well. I know I kind of yamble and ramble and do all this sort of stuff, and it's kind of sort of going the way that I'm wanting it to, but not exactly. But it's just, I guess it's just using all this stuff as a sample, and I definitely kind of want to go through the 2018 stuff to present day ideas real quick. But the whole entire thing of, like I said, I wanted people to kind of come around with is that costuming is more than just it looks pretty. There's a lot of, background, just a ton of stuff that goes into making a costume. And then we present the product, and it's then the people see the product and they're like, ooh, this is great. because Baby Metal is technically a product. So, that's what I want people to come away with is an understanding and appreciation for the world of costuming in the eyes of Baby Metal, I guess. So as I had said, wanted to mention before, before we go on to 2018, actually 2017, once again, another Maggie was very worried for Sue moment. I did for Legend M, which was obviously afterwards. I did for Legend M make Moa's Legend S outfit, which was super, super cool. Like she had like the tutu and stuff, but she had a like almost dragon scale overlay of the skirt. It was really neat. And it had the silver and the it was obviously silver and black. It had there was a piece of like a belt that kind of came across the chest that attached to the one side that had the huge feathers on it, which were all black, borrowing from an outfit that has twice been replicated, the Budokan outfit from Sue's outfit, and also Tokyo Dome, because Tokyo Dome, she had the feather puffs as well. Like I said, just think it's so great that they keep using old elements from other outfits. I just love it. And then they have, of course, the shiny sleeve as well, the very flowy sleeve. So, but initially I really wanted to do Sue's outfit because I was just like, oh, that thing's so great and wonderful. But after the show, that outfit was displayed at I believe it was Tower Records, I'm pretty sure. They displayed just Sue's outfit. That girl was wearing velvet. She was wearing velvet up and around her neck area.
What does that mean? Well, I know what velvet is, but why is that a moment?
If it were socially acceptable.
Well, it's velvet when you wear it. It's very warm. Like it's like what is that stuff called? They have it like the crushed velvet. They always like back in like the 90s or so, they had those jumpsuits that had the crushed velvet. Well, that was always worn during the wintertime because that stuff is warm. It is very, very, very warm to wear. And the matter of fact that they used it up and around her neck, I can't imagine her being comfortable in that outfit at all. Like, but the thing about that is also too, I guess, and I've failed to mention up to this point, is in the construction of the outfit, and I've used this multiple times with the multiple Baby Metal outfits that I've done, there is a material that they use as like the main base of the outfit, which is actually part of the reason why I bet that's probably a little bit more breathable. If you look at the backs of the outfits from pretty much 2014 onwards, they always have that just blank, matte, black back with the zipper up the top, with the zipper in the back, right? That material actually is like a stretch material. And depending on the type that you buy, it is actually extremely breathable. It is very, very comfortable to wear in any circumstance. It's almost like a swimsuit material, but just slightly thicker. They call it a 2-way or a 4-way. Just it depends on what I mean by that is if you take the material and you pull on it, sometimes you can pull it one way and not in the other direction. 4-way means that you can stretch it pretty much any direction that you want. But they've used some kind of stretchable, breathable material in the back, and I'm sure that has probably helped out with the comfort levels of their outfits. Not so much the 2014 outfits up to like, I might say about maybe to 2017. But although they did use that continuing on, but that probably had helped out a lot. Like I said, the material type that is used to breathe in, which is the same kind of stuff that I used for the outfit that I made that I wore to rock on the range. And a lot of people were asking, like I said earlier, oh my gosh, you got to be uncomfortable, you got to be hot, you got to be sweating. I'm just like, no, I'm doing fine. That was because I used that type of material as the base, and it made it really easy to kind of breathe in, and it actually helped me not sweat as much as well. Like it kind of took the moisture away from my skin, so I did have to kind of semi-dry clean it a little bit. It was a little gross afterwards, but so that's just another thing to learn about is the material really does make a difference in the things you're making. But yeah, the fact that she wore crushed velvet or velvet in general up, it just really bothered me, because I was like, she had to have been so uncomfortable, at least up and around the neck area for that. And like I said, the back's always had that breathable material back there that probably helped, but even then, it's just like still that added heat under a lot of lights. So quickly, because we're really running into time, and I'm so sorry. I tried to keep this short, but I did not do such a thing.
However, before we move on, just to keep us from actually getting anywhere, the velvet you mentioned, I mean, like presumably that wasn't just for fun. I mean, like it might have been kind of in order to keep the costume from rubbing against her neck or something, right? I mean, like that there would be some functional reason for it.
Not necessarily. Really not necessarily. I mean, velvet in and of itself for functionality is more for to keep somebody warm. It's heavy. It's a very heavy material. A lot of obviously like cloaks and stuff. A lot of cloaks, like capes and things, are made out of velvet, like the really high quality stuff. I mean, it as far as the design of the outfit in and of itself is concerned, if you look up close to it, there's a lot of contrasting materials that are in the outfit. Some of the stuff that I couldn't even really pinpoint as to what exactly the material type that was used, but some people will do that just as a difference in contrast as well. They'll use something that's kind of thick and has like a sheen on it versus something that's completely devoid of any kind of shininess whatsoever. A matte is what they call it. Just to get a contrast in it. So okay, so it was actually visible from the outside. It wasn't just a lining. No, it wasn't a lining. No, It was a visible. Yeah, it's up in the. So she had that little bit of a neck piece,
right?
And it kind of curved around down just a tiny bit, almost like it was supposed to be like an underlay, but it wasn't. It was all part of one outfit. But that was from a distance you couldn't tell, but up close it was velvet.
Huh, okay.
So yeah. But I don't really know the reasoning behind them using that specific, like why they would use velvet in that regard. I would be definitely probably the first question I would pose to any of the costumers if I ever ran into any of them. Be like, why did you do this? Like, was she okay? So, I mean, but yeah, I mean, some people use different types of materials for more contrasting purposes than anything, not necessarily a functionality. So that's really the only way I can answer that.
Actually, there's one other thing that I wanted to, before we leave Legend Us, it might be worth remarking on the, I think it was the One costumes.
Oh, those ones.
The trash bags?
No,
not the trash bags.
The wicker chair
The goddess
ones.
Outfits.
Oh, yeah, that one.
The goddess ones, which also was something I learned from Allie, and I keep referencing her because she's awesome. Something else I learned from Ellie was that apparently those are reminiscent of very, which is odd, but very Asian, like has a Thai backing to it. The design, I can't remember what exactly she said that those specifically were used for, but they definitely had a very like a Thai design concept to them. I just wish I could be a bit more specific about it. I really wish I could.
But so this does actually have some reference to like this.
Yeah, there is actually a reference to why they were wearing it. As far as like and honestly, I just like the simplicity of it. Just the really pretty gold front, which they had the shoulders, which the shoulders are always really cool.
Yeah, I really like that. I like that. I like everything, below the head of that outfit, but I don't understand the wicker crown.
Yeah, that was also one thing too. This is like they only had so much time to be able to get out of their performance outfits and into these outfits. Now, in the outfits in themselves, they probably just unzip out, put that thing on. But it's the headpiece that gets me. It's like, how in the world did they stuff all that hair under that headpiece? So that's what I want to know. Mm-hmm. Secrets of the backstage. But okay, so to kind of wrap things up, now we're into the point of their more mature look into current days. As far as the design concept of that is concerned, they tried, obviously they were trying to go away from being from the tutus up into something that looks a little bit more mature. And obviously people wreck on the 2018 outfits so much, which is the ones where they had the kind of like battle crowns and their hairs were down. They went back to kind of the Roman skirt look, and actually that was probably the most like actual like battle armor look that they had. Like it looked like they were going off fighting some rugged stuff, and they were into black and gold with that too.
One thing that I thought was interesting about that is that it's unlike all of the prior armor, it's arguably no metal is involved. I mean, it looks like all leather. I mean, it may not actually be leather, but I mean, it has the look of leather armor.
Right. Yeah. No, there's faux leather, obviously. It's a little bit thinner to use. It's very lightweight. And because I did make this outfit too. It's a very lightweight material.
But there's like no rivets, no metal plates anywhere. It's really
no.
It's unlike different. It's like a different era armor. It's like elves and magic.
Mm-hmm. Kind of a bit. Yeah, very kind of concept of that. I mean, the 2018 concept was very kind of mystical in its own weird way. Mm-hmm. I guess it's like, ooh, we're going off to something that might exist in the future. But yeah, totally. Like I said, they totally got rid of all the tutus and stuff, and you have to kind of think about what's going to look a bit more mature for your performance artist. So then they started it on this, and actually then now they've been building up from the 2018 outfit all the way up to what is currently today. Obviously, after the 2018 World Tour stuff, they had the Dark Knight Carnival, which, the feathers in the hair completely pulled back, wavy. The word is couture. That is the word we're looking for in this. That was also something pointed out to me, that they used a lot of things that would not typically be used in normal everyday stuff, which, I mean, that's kind of what the dark side was. It's like it's a whole entire new piece of media.
So Kevin, when you had been talking through this stuff, didn't you, I thought you had an idea about how this was sort of like documenting steps along the way in an actual sort of battle, and I'm wondering where Dark Knight Carnival falls in that, because I think you were mentioning that once they got to Australia, it was all kind of burnt.
Yeah, well, I mean, they used that in Dark Knight Carnival. It's the same costume, right? The Australia tour and the Dark Knight Carnival costume. The way I interpreted it, and the way I think several of us, when we were talking about it, saw this as, there was like pipe cleaners going everywhere and the hair pulled back and just kind of disheveled and burned look. To me, it looked like, they were taking as if you set the like tutu costume on fire and then dressed them in that. That's what this was.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense.
Like the destruction of the old image as a transitory costume.
Mm-hmm.
Because the next time, we see them after Dark Knight Carnival, they're back in a completely refreshed, modern, more adult look.
Mm-hmm.
I guess. So yeah, that's my one contribution to costuming that I happened to notice throughout the years, and how they were telling a story.
Mm-hmm. And it does make sense.
They do. Maybe they both, but at least Sue has this. It's something like a skirt, except that it's just a skeleton, basically. It looks kind of like a destroyed building.
Right.
Yeah.
Or I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, Maggie, but some skirts have like metal wires in them to make them always poof out,
right.
Or some sort of structure to them, right?
Yeah.
So
you're
what
right.
what we're seeing on this particular costume is, if you burned away all the fabric, all you would see is the framework for the tutu.
That's very That's very wise. Very smart. Yes. I like that. Like I said, I'm learning stuff too from this. But yeah, yeah, Kevin, you're right, correct. That's just, yeah, the destruction of everything. The destruction of a lot of different stuff. My heart. I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, and then of course, but the thing is that they still kept with that silhouette.
Mm-hmm.
With the kind of the more flatter skirt. They went back to having the peplums again, but they're on the side instead of fully in full circle, going back to having the kind of more armor look, but with obviously with Metal Galaxy, it looks more space, holographics and gems that, of course, when the light hits it, giving you multiple different colors of the rainbow, and back to having some lace into their outfits. And I really kind of like the space look. Mm-hmm. I think it looks really nice. And then of course, then they translated that into the 2020 anniversary outfits, which somebody made note of this, and it really kind of agitated me that I didn't notice it first. The 2020 outfits is that the way that the skirt was designed, they added some kind of like a underlay to it to make it stiffer and to make the side skirts stick out more. And the shoulder pad pieces were a little bit more pointed upwards and more in a straighter V, that the outfit made it look like an X was on them.
Yeah, I'm
just like, I can't, I'm frustrated at the fact that I didn't think of it first, but somebody else pointed it out. I'm just like, that is brilliant.
Yeah.
That's great idea. And that's the kind of like the very minor things that, like I said, with costuming, it's just the small details that make it where, yeah, your audience may not necessarily notice it right offhand, but you try to kind of give that image to it. And if somebody notices it, great. If they don't, well, it still looks good. But
I think there's a difference between noticing it and subconsciously understanding what the message is. Like that, it's very intentional to keep the silhouette, as you've mentioned, right?
Exactly.
And that's what the X in the structure is doing. So even though we see that for the first time, you may not connect the dots in your brain, but subconsciously, it's familiar.
Mm-hmm. True. Yeah, because I mean, it is pretty much. The Metal Galaxy and the well, we'll just for shorthand call it Budokan. The Budokan outfit are primarily primarily the same outfit, just gold and structured out a little, just a tiny bit stiffer to kind of give that X straight line from shoulder to skirt look. Mm-hmm. So
one other thing about the I guess this actually was true from 2018, but they lost all aspects of puffiness. Like there's nothing puffy is left. It's all draped at this point. Which is I think that is a way to signify the change in age too. Like it's no longer little
maturity.
Kid.
Yeah, exactly. I kind of ran through that whole entire portion there real quick because I know we're kind of pushing time here and it's already kind of long, but like I said, the whole entire takeaway of this whole entire thing is that costuming is a very much an art. There's a lot more steps in it, a lot of steps that are involved in creation of a costume, and that we have to appreciate everyone who is in the background of Team Baby Metal because, even though we don't see necessarily directly what they're doing, they do a lot of work. And even though we always talk about Copa and stuff, but, it takes a village to be able to raise a child, is what they say. But yeah, I hope y'all learned something.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's it is very interesting. A lot of interesting ideas too, hiding in there. And I think that's actually sort of true of the whole enterprise. I mean, like I think we were talking a little bit sort of offline about all of the production stuff that goes into lighting and all that other stuff. I mean, like there's a ton of sort of unexplored genius in there in this
exactly
this whole project.
And costuming is just one of them.
Exactly. But it is one of them. I mean, it definitely is
I mean, it's
part.
It's very important, yeah. Because like I said, it's they tell their story through their costumes for the most part. I mean, that is actually how they tell their story, is through their costume. They don't have a whole lot of props and stuff. I mean, they did kind of sort of for some of their shows, but for the most part, they do tell their story through their outfits and their personas as they take, Sue Metal, Moa Metal, Yui Metal, the Avengers.
Well, it's the whole image, right? And it has been since the beginning.
Yeah, they're
after the music, that's the first thing you notice.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're pretty good at, I mean, like you were saying about this, like borrowing an element from the prior iteration. I think that is essentially kind of like sticking to the message, keeping on the brand. That you want to have space to play, but you want it to still be identifiable.
Exactly.
So, it also actually goes, what you were just saying reminds me, connects in my head a little bit with the idea of how the choreography works and how the choreography tends to kind of tell the story that the lyrics are telling as well. So both of these things together kind of make it more accessible to those who do not already speak Japanese.
Right.
Yeah. And that's also a thing with, I mean, that's a totally different subject of choreography, but I know that's something that Mikiko, she always does her choreography based on the words and not the actual music, or vice versa, one of the two. I can't remember.
It's largely the words, which is why the choreography to Elevator Girl English version makes no sense.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it's exactly the same as the normal choreography, and the words don't mean anything like the same thing.
No. They're a little different. So that is my education for today, and I hope y'all enjoyed it. Thank you.
Class dismissed.
Any further questions?
Very cool. Well, thanks.
Well, first of all, great job.
Thanks a lot. That was really
thanks.
Very well done, informative, well timed. Good way to occupy ourselves during the seal.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I tried.
Dragon Fury wants to know if this will be on the test.
No. No, I just, like I said, I just really, in all honesty, just wanted to make sure that everyone took out of this an appreciation for costuming, really. That's kind of, that it's not just, I know I keep repeating myself, but it's not just, ooh, pretty, but there's a lot more involved in it.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Oh. Yeah. Well, okay. And that is it for this episode. Join us on the Baby Metal Podcast Discord to continue the conversation. Rating the podcast on whatever platform you listen on will help people find it. So please do that. We'll be back here in about 2 weeks or so, and we will hope you will join us. Until then, see you.